Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Holistic Health Hour. This is Dr. Kevin Connors, and we have some questions to go over. So let's jump right into it. I want to welcome any new members. So this is for multiple courses, so we're going to have multiple different questions. Um, so understand at our clinic, we give God the glory for everything. So let's just jump into some questions. How is autoimmune disease diagnosed? So a lot of people think that they might have an autoimmune disease, never been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. Most of the time, it's the other way around. They don't think that they have autoimmune disease, and they do have an autoimmune disease, and it's never been diagnosed. Not exactly the other way around, but that's usually this real scenario that's taking place. The truth is that just about everybody in a short period of time are going to be dealing with an autoimmune disease. Why would you say that? Because we live in such a toxic world, that toxins are the number one thing, biotoxins as well, getting in our system, crossing damaged barriers, gut barriers, lung barriers, skin barriers, toxins that our ancestors were never exposed to, toxins that people are injecting into their arm or letting somebody inject into their arm, in the guise that it's actually protecting them, that's causing their body to create antibodies to self-tissue. So remember, your immune system does one thing, and it's meant to do only one thing, that is kill things. So your immune system is only created to kill biotoxins, a pathogen, an enemy, a virus, a bacteria, some fungus that's in your body. But when we have this overabundance of toxins in our body that is overwhelming our liver detoxification pathways, and then being shunted out of the blood into the extracellular spaces and or into the cells, cytoplasm, your immune system will attempt to kill it, can't kill it, over and over again, can end up firing a B cell reaction and create antibodies against the neighboring tissue to the toxin. So that is a major reason, one major reason why we have autoimmune disorders. The definition of an autoimmune disease is that you have antibodies to self-tissue. And then you could go into my videos on autoimmune diseases, the different phases of autoimmune disease. You could have a latent phase, or you could have a reactive phase. And so go into that video to understand that a little bit. But long answer for a short question. An autoimmune disease is diagnosed based upon a person showing positive tissue antibodies. And then you go into the different phases of an autoimmune disease. And then when you're in that third phase, that very reactive autoimmune phase where you're really getting symptoms and tissue destruction, that's when, so there's some gray area in the diagnosis. So if I do a thyroid panel and I show TPO antibodies, but I just did a thyroid panel as a screen, I don't have any thyroid symptoms whatsoever. And so therefore, you're not going to see tissue destruction of the thyroid. But if I have no thyroid symptoms whatsoever, I might have elevated TPO antibodies. So technically, I may have Hashimoto's, but the doctor may not give you a diagnosis of Hashimoto's if you show no signs of, low or high, thyroid issues. Be graves if it's high. But so an autoimmune disease is diagnosed by a blood test showing positive tissue antibodies. But then that's the technical diagnosis, but then the clinical diagnosis is when those are accompanied by symptoms and, or worst case scenario, symptoms and tissue destruction. So that's how an autoimmune disease is diagnosed. My son has Lyme. How can I help navigate his journey? That's a pretty deep question. because it really depends on what phase of Lyme they're in. So if they're in the acute phase, I'm sure you're talking about a chronic phase Lyme here, not an acute phase Lyme. But in a chronic phase Lyme, and in a start up with acute phase Lyme, basically follow the instructions on the Lyme course. You would consider getting a doctor locally where you could get a prescription of antibiotics. In a chronic phase, antibiotics can help somewhat as well, but you really need to start getting your immune system to try to help kill this. That's where a Rife can be beneficial. And then in phase 3, if you're in an autoimmune phase, that's a whole different ball of wax, whole different way you have to treat it, because you're basically at that point managing it, not treating it. So follow everything that's on that on the Lyme course. If you're on that Lyme course, if you're not on the Lyme course, you really want to join the Lyme course because it gets tricky. Now we'll have the autoimmune course done in a matter of time here, so that will help as well. But people make major mistakes when they're treating chronic Lyme if they are in an autoimmune phase, and that can give them a lot of symptoms that they call Herxheimer reaction symptoms, but many times they're not even Herxheimer reaction symptoms. It's that you're getting damage to self tissue if you have self antibodies, back to that autoimmune question. If you have self antibodies to self tissue and you're giving a lot of immune stimulants and you're in a Th1 dominant condition, you can actually be making yourself worse and helping your immune system kill your body. So you do want to investigate if you've been, especially if you've experienced worse symptoms trying to take immune stimulants. I know it goes against contrary thought, contrary to your typical thought that I have a biotoxin, I want to kill it. So I'm going to take all these immune stimulants to kill it, but I feel worse. Maybe it's just die-off. Maybe, but more than likely, if this is happening a lot, if you're not getting any better, if you have antibodies to self tissue and you're stimulating immune response, and you're in a Th1 dominance already, you will, fire, or you will kill that which you have antibodies against first, which is the self tissue, and you can make yourself worse because you're just damaging yourself. So you don't want to, you have to back off on those immune stimulants, and you have to try to deal with this another way and calm down that inflammatory response, stimulate what are called T regulator cells, which help balance the immune system. And if you still have an active antigen or an active pathogen, you want to do things to kill it that won't be using your immune system, and that's where the Rife machine can be real helpful. I had a Cyrex 10 test done. How do I know what to do with it? So looking at that question, I pulled up the Cyrex 10 test, what a person would look at. This is just page 1 of, I think, 4, 5 pages that come with the Cyrex 10 test. So the Cyrex Array 10 test is a food immune antibody screen. So it's testing antibodies to different peptides of proteins of different foods, cooked foods, raw foods, and measuring whether you have antibodies to it. Now, this is page 1 of your test. You have a really bad problem. Your gut is quite damaged. So green would be normal. So if let's say this top thing, it says egg white cooked, you are in the equivocal range. That means, so yellow is bad, red is really bad. Let's just use layman's terms here. Goat's milk, really bad. Soft cheese plus hard cheese, really bad. Yogurt, bad. I mean, do we have anything in the good range here? Nothing. So this is a person who is got a lot of immune issues, a lot of immune compromise. There's literally nothing on this page that they can eat. This would be odd. There's a lot of people that would do this test that everything on all the pages is green and they might have significant health issues. Well, they don't have food antibodies. So that is not the piece that we need to work on. But this is not an uncommon test for somebody with Lyme or with any other autoimmune disease that they may even think that they have no food sensitivities. They may think that, yeah, I have a gut, that's strong as steel. I don't have any issues whatsoever. But yet you look at, they have antibodies against it. So this means literally every time this person would eat goat's milk, they fire this inflammatory response that's very high, that's causing a lot of inflammation in the gut. And inflammation in the gut is going to damage the epithelial lining of the gut. The inflammation of the gut is going to cause inflammation in the brain and systemic inflammation. And if there already is damage to the lining of the gut, which definitely there is, looking at this panel right here, these antibodies can get across the damaged gut wall into the blood, causing an immune reaction to that peptide in the blood, causing systemic inflammation. So this in itself, food, antibodies to different foods, and you're eating those foods, if you have antibodies to different foods and you're eating those foods, that can be a primary source of systemic, meaning whole body inflammation. And you can't get better no matter how many supplements you take, no matter how many tools you are using, no matter how many good things you're doing. If you're causing this literal, house fire, every time you eat that thing, you're not going to get better. So this Cyrex testing to me is really important with any person that has any health compromise, because it really helps you understand what you could be doing to damage your body that you might not even have symptoms. So this person might not have gut pain at all. Kind of odd. This person probably does. But let's say the person, everything was in green, but just these things, the peas, the pea protein, and the popcorn was in red in this. Let's say everything else was in the green. But let's say they eat popcorn 3 times a week because that's just their family trait. And they don't notice any problems. They don't have any stomach ache. But every time they eat popcorn, they cause this ramped up inflammation, this literal bonfire in their gut that is, or in their bloodstream, that is causing their health problems. It could be causing their rheumatoid arthritis. It could be causing their Hashimoto's. It could be causing and that it's something that they're attributing to their Lyme disease or their MS, and they never put the two things together. So I'm very big on doing this kind of testing, because you can find things out that you can really, really help people with. So you run that test and you go, goodness sakes, I never had any stomach ache when I ate popcorn. I had no idea. And this person then takes popcorn out of their diet. Let's pretend that they had popcorn, cooked peas, and pea protein, and they were doing a pea protein shake every day too. And they remove those things from their diet for a period of time, and their whole inflammatory process goes down. Now, I believe that this is just one facet in a person's health. There's other things going on. Maybe they have biotoxins. Maybe they have heavy metals. Maybe they have, Lyme disease. Maybe they have damaged blood-brain barrier. Maybe they have a damaged lung barrier. Maybe they have mold issues too. So you have to deal with as many of these facets as possible if you want to get better. And I know it gets exhausting, but the problem that people have and the mistake that people make is they think that it's good. They're just missing this one piece. And they do that one piece, and then they get really disappointed because they didn't see results. But they dropped everything else. And it's that's an error. So if a person's got a test that looks like this example here, then they have a really bad damaged barrier. So their gut barrier needs to be healed. So just going off all these foods is not going to fix their problem. They need to be doing stuff to heal their gut at the same time. And that is just absolutely essential. But again, it's not the only thing. If they have a damaged gut barrier, they probably have a damaged blood-brain barrier. They probably have a damaged alveolar barrier in the lungs. And those things need to be healed too. So you have to do a lot of things concurrently to really see the benefit. And it takes time for your body to heal. And you want to do a retest after a period of time to see those changes. So I do have a video on the different arrays that will help you, the array 10 that goes into more detail than I'm talking about in this, but I think this will give you a nice overview. And of course, we give God the glory in all things. We know that He is our healer, and we trust Him and give Him just, understand that He gets the glory even in our sickness. There's a purpose for that too. And we want to see that purpose and glorify Him in that, in all things. All right, thank you for today's Holistic Health Hour, and we will be back next time.